Okay, so let's see, we're back, and so now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an example of this ragged array, of how to do it a little bit more dynamically even than the way that they showed in the way that we showed in the slides. So let's imagine, let me see, let me just show the whole screen. I think the whole screen is just the easiest way to do this. Okay, so let's imagine that what we want is we want to give the user we're gonna have a certain number of rows, okay, and even that could be something that we enter. Like, actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let's change it up a little bit. Let's even change it from equals input dot next int. Oh, we need to give a little fun prompt, right? What? How many rows? How many rows must a man walk down? Anyway, so that's an old song. Anyway, all right. So we're gonna say how many rows? Please enter. How many rows? And that's dashes usually or something like enter how many rows. Anyway, okay. So we're going to ask them how many rows. They're going to give it to us, and then we're going to, what I've done is I've said, okay, I'm going to pass to this myArray method, right? That's going to, what it's going to do is it's going to take how many rows the user said they wanted to put. It's also going to pass my scanner object so that I'm only creating one scanner object. Use this back in what we talked about the assignment, creating only one scanner object. Okay, so we're going to pass the scanner object and how many rows, and then what's going to happen inside of this method is for each row is it's going to ask the user, okay, that's how many rows for each row. In that row, how many items should be in that particular row? Okay. So let's do it this way. Let's go ahead and run this now. So I won't show you what's inside of my array just yet. Okay. Okay. I won't show you what's inside of it just yet. So we're going to say, how many rows do you want to do? Let's do 5 rows. Okay, so now row count is 5. All right. And what's going to happen is it's going to say, okay, how many items should there be in row 1? Well, I would like 6 items in row 1. How many items in row 2? I would like 4 items in row 2. How many items in row 3? I would like 2 items in row 3. Row 4, I would like 1. Row 5, I would like 1. Okay. Now notice what we just had happen here. So now this is my value array back in my main method. All right. Now what we got created here was what? Okay. Is a 6-item first array, a 4-item second array, a 2-item third array, a 1-item fourth array, a 1-item fifth array. Okay, and just to have some fun with it, what I did was, okay, I said to the user, I want you to tell me what the top corner value should be. What should this value be? 23. Okay, so when that happens, it changes my 0, 0 item. And then what I did was I also added some code that for each row, I want the first item in the row to be the length of whatever the length of that row. Okay. So here, the second row should be 4. That's 4 items in that row. 2 items in that row. 1 item in that row. 1 item in that row. And we are done. And what's the last thing I print? Oh, fun thing. When I print value, the array itself, okay, it doesn't display the contents of the array. It displays this funky identifier. all right, for what the thing in memory is. Okay, so this does not go through and display the values in the array. It displays this weird thing. Okay, all right. So how did I do that? How did I create these rows dynamically? Well, let's take a look. So in my array, it's very simple. I mean, it's not a lot of code, right? First, I want to return a two-dimensional array. So I need to create a two-dimensional array. Now, notice what I've done here. I took the row count, whatever the row count should be, and I said, I want to create a two-dimensional array that has the first size of the dimension is whatever the row count is. Okay, so I'm going to say, I want this, all right? I want row count. So in my example I gave above, I said five rows. So I want 5 blank arrays. Okay. Then I'm going to loop through 5 times, asking them how many items in row I plus 1, just like we did before, just like we did earlier in this lecture. And each time through, I want to say how many items should be in that row. And I'm going to get that information from the user. Okay. And what I'm going to say is the array at that position should be a new array of that size they just entered. Okay, so the first time through, array of 0 should be a new array of whatever size they just entered is. I do that each time through. So the second time through, I is 1. Array at 1 should be an array of size whatever they just entered. All right, so let's take a look. Let me pull up that canvas again, because I want to show you what happens inside of this method when I do that. Okay. All right, so I've already shown you how this works with the value array. Okay, how many rows? This time, let's say 6 rows this time, to show that even the number of rows can be dynamic. Okay, so now we're inside of here. Now I created an array, a two-dimensional array of size 6. So let me pull this over here and show you what that looks like. Okay, now notice that when I first create this, it's 6 rows, but each row doesn't have anything yet, right? Because when I did that over here, right? When I did that over here, all I did was I said create 6 rows, but each row is going to be an array. We just don't know what size it is yet. We haven't done that part yet. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to say, please enter how many rows and how many items in row 1. Let's do 3 items in row 1. Okay. So now item count is 3, and now what I'm going to say is array at 0, so this guy here should be a blank new array of size 3. Let's see what happens. Look at that. It creates an array of size 3. What? That's so cool, right? Okay. How many items in row 2? Let's do 4. 4 items in row 2. So now this 4, what's it going to do? It's going to create a new array of size 4. It's going to assign it to array at index 1, right? So here, so it's going to have this right here. All right. So keep it going. How many items in row 3? Let's go with 1. And then you guys should see this is going to be a 1 here. Let's do 2. Let's do a 1 again. And I'm going to do something funky for this last one and see what happens, okay? Because I'm going to do 0. So now this array, this last array, row 6, should be 0 items, which becomes this blank thing. So now I is going to become 6. It's going to be too high. It's going to pop out of my for loop. And now notice all that happens is array is just a pointer to this object 521. So then when I come back, when I return that 521, notice that 521. What happens? Value is going to get assigned the return value of that array, 521. So let's take a look. Does that become 521? Look at there, 521. See that? Now what is value? What is my value array? Look, it's the same thing, right? It's just a copy of this. This and this are the same thing. This thing doesn't exist in memory anymore, by the way. Okay, so the only thing that's important now is this value array. Okay, so now I can take that first item and give it some new value of whatever I enter, let's say 45. Now 45 becomes this. Now for each, notice it did point to the same thing because it points to the same object in memory, because that's fine. Okay, now for each one, the first item in the array, I'm going to give it whatever the value is, that's the length of the array. So 4, 1, 2, 1. Now this is going to get interesting. What do you think is going to happen here? What do you guys think is going to happen here? Thoughts? Comments? I is 5. I'm looking at this array here. What's going to happen here? Let's see some answers here. Yeah, so those of you who have chimed in pretty quickly with saying it's going to be an error, yeah, because here's what's going to happen, is this is going to give the value 0. That's fine, no problem. And it's going to try to assign it. So what's going to happen is as this is executing, it's going to look for the array at index 5. So it's going to see this. And then it's going to try to access the location at index 0. But there is nothing at location index 0. Right? This is a very special case that when we create an empty array, we cannot index it at all. Because remember, what would happen if we tried to index something at its own length? Right? Remember when we tried to do stuff like this, we got array index out of bounds. And the reason we got array index out of bounds was because we could not access something at an index beyond what it had stored, right? Well, in this special case of an empty array, the last array index value, there is none, because the length is 0. This would be the same as value sub I dot length. Okay. All right. So we cannot get this. So what's going to happen is we're going to get an array right here, array index out of bounds exception. We cannot access an array of 0 length at index 0. Okay, not possible. All right. So this is an example of how we can dynamically create a ragged array. So if we wanted the first array, if we wanted the size, the number of rows to be however many we want, right? If we wanted to make it if we wanted to make it 10 rows, right? And we're going to say how many items in row 1? Actually, how many items in row 1? 12, 3, 6, 8, 21, 10, 7, 8, 1. How many rows did I say? 12? 10? Okay, 10. Okay. All right, notice we have all these different array sizes here, right? With index 4, so row 5 being the greatest, 21. Yeah, 21. We have 21 positions there, right? As we would expect. Okay. So this is a way that we can dynamically, each time we run through this, create a different set of sizes of arrays for each of our rows. Okay, and then that way, we can have different values for certain categories. For like maybe this first row might be. Let me just run this out to the end and show you. Oh wait. Okay. Maybe we might say, you know what? Let me make that first row. Say I want 4 categories of grades, and that first one, how many items in row 1? Oh, how many quizzes am I going to give? I'm going to give 6 quizzes. Okay. How many items in row 2? How many homeworks am I giving? I'm going to give 4 homeworks. How many items in row 3? How many midterm exams am I going to give? I'm going to give 1 midterm exam. How many final exams am I going to give? 1 final exam. Right? And now look, now I have a ragged array that contains all of those things. So I have 6 quiz positions, 4 homework positions, a midterm exam, and a final exam position. Right? And then I can access each one. I can access, if I wanted to get, for example, the first quiz and give the student a 100 on the first quiz. All right? Then I can do it that way. And so forth. Okay, and that's how I can access those different things. All right. So I hope that clears things up a bit. By the way, you are about to get a notification that there's a quiz for today, actually. That should be available here shortly. For those of you who are watching this, hopefully you also got the notification of your post-lecture quiz. One note I want to make about this quiz. It is going to be the easiest 50 points you ever get in any of my classes. It shouldn't take you any difficulty at all to get 50 points on this quiz. Okay. But as I tell every student that I give this particular quiz to, I give it every year, it is also the hardest quiz that you will, the hardest thing you will adhere to in your life. Okay, it shouldn't be that difficult to complete it and get 50 points. But It is something that's very valuable, and it's probably the most important quiz that I give to any of my students. Okay, I just got the notification. I think that you guys should have as well, that it should be posting here in a second. And so go ahead and complete that. And let me turn off the sharing here. All right. So go ahead and complete that quiz, and we won't meet next week. We won't be meeting next week. We will, because of the New Year's holiday, but remember there is a quiz on Wednesday based on assignment 3. Other than that, have a happy new year, and I will see you guys in 2021. All right. Have a good afternoon and a good weekend.